Hi, this is Ed. I'm in San Diego, and today is 15 September. Hard to believe the month's half over already. So today launches a new series. I'm really honored to have Stephen Howard as a collaborator and partner in this. It's going to be a series of 8 broadcasts, and it's it's just going to be high education, that's for sure. I'm going to read this to you. The theme of the series is leading for sustained success. Now, this is business leadership. Stephen Howard is author of 26 books on leadership and making good decisions, leading people, not managing people, managing projects, managing development, managing customer relations, but not managing people, leading people, helping people develop. This is Stephen's specialty. He's becoming famous for that. I'm really happy to have him teach. Today's program is just perfect timing, in my view. Authoritarianism, that's a big word, versus people-centric leadership. That's a big thought. Stephen has a knack for explaining difficult things in simple terms. You'll see just a few minutes. So here's an outline. The theme, once again, leading for sustained success. Today's edition, authoritarianism, which means big boss. I'm the leader. Do it my way or the highway. Things like that. I've experienced that. Have you? Authoritarianism versus people-centric leadership. Which is more effective and why? Leadership, power, where does it originate? This should be good. The key elements of true leadership power: trust, influence, and authority. I'm going to repeat that. The key elements of true leadership power: trust, influence, authority. Finally, why authoritarianism doesn't work in today's workplaces. So get ready to learn and have some fun. Be right back with Stephen Howard. Thank you. Hi, we're back in San Diego. Our very special guest today is Stephen Howard, who's broadcasting from Phoenix. And you could see the name and the logo behind Stephen, leading for sustained success. This is going to be an 8-edition series, and it is a tour de force. I've been looking at the outline, and the first edition today, on September 15, 2025. I'm going to read this. Authoritarianism, that's a big word, versus people-centric leadership. Welcome, Stephen. Tell us
Thank you.
what people-centric means to you as the author of 26 books on leadership.
I'll just take the two words and put them in sequence. It means focusing on people first. It doesn't mean people over profits or people over results. It just means people first, then results. And that's why I talk about sustained success. Now, we're not talking about sustainability. This is not about green marketing or environmentalism or anything else. This is about sustained success, making sure you can be successful quarter after quarter, year after year. And those who focus on results only, yeah, you can get great results. You can get great results for the third quarter or great results for the fourth quarter. But what if you burn your people out? Let's say you get great results for the fourth quarter this year, and your people are just exhausted. They're tired. They're angry. You're bullying them. How likely you get good results in the first quarter next year? How high will your employee turnover be after the first of the year? How much time you have to spend replacing staff because you burned them out? And then you can't sustain the success. And that's why too often, we have people going, up and down like a roller coaster, good quarter, bad quarter, good quarter, bad quarter. It's not sustained.
It's almost like watching the San Diego Padres baseball team. I mean, last night was great, but they were ahead something like 9-1, and then all of a sudden, no, 7-1, and then all of a sudden the team came back and they finished up winning 9-6. But boy,
Okay.
it got a little nerve-wracking at the end. But thank you for talking about this. Now, earlier in our relationship on the global TV talk shows, you had stressed so many times that nobody wants to wake up in the morning to be managed. They
Yeah.
want they want to be influenced. They want to be developed, according to your words.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the phrase I often use. And nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I can't wait to be managed by my boss today. And certainly nobody ever wakes up and says, I can't wait to be micromanaged by my boss today. So, people they want to be led. They want to be motivated. They want to be inspired. They want to have input, not necessarily in the decisions, but certainly in how to implement the decisions. So people understand, if you're a middle manager, you understand that, senior executives or the owner of the business, if we're talking small business, they're going to make decisions, but they're going to ask you to implement it. And you want to, as a manager or supervisor, or even as an individual contributor, have some input as to how you implement those decisions, because you understand what's happening at the front line. You understand what's going on with the customers much better than people in the C-suite might understand that. So it's that opportunity to be involved, engaged in the actual implementation, not necessarily in the big decisions, but in the implementation. And that's what people want. And that's a lesson that many companies learned and many companies did not learn coming out of the pandemic. And that's what led to the Great Resignation and Great Resignation 2.0. People just saying, you know what? I don't want to work here. If I have no input, I'd rather go somewhere else. I don't want to commute 45 minutes and work for someone who doesn't listen to me, who doesn't take my ideas, who doesn't get me involved. I'll go someplace else. So that's again being people centric first, and then focusing on the results.
I've I've got a question that just popped into my head listening to you explain that. Would it be helpful, or would you influence a client, a corporate client today to do a weekly or bi-monthly, in other words, every 2 weeks rather than once a week, a TV, a Zoom to the troops, an interactive talk show so that the the audience is closed circuit. It's the employees, and so that the employees understand more about the C-suite and how they look at the business, or if it's a founder uh, as CEO, then what made them make the business work the way it is working today.
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't. Every company's going to be different. Every organization's different. So for some companies, once a week might work, particularly smaller organizations. For larger organizations, it might be once a quarter. Might even just be twice a year. Depends on the nature of their industry and how fast things are changing. But take your idea, and this is what department heads, SBU heads, team leaders should be doing. Team leaders definitely on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. Department heads maybe once a month. Um, and yes, interactive. Find out what's on the people's minds. Find out where you can help. I mean, too often I think people who are people leaders, they wear two hats. They wear a management hat and a leadership hat. And too often they spend time with that management hat on. The management hat tells people what to do. They tell them how to do it. They just tell you, here's the results we want, but without the explanation of why, what's behind it. A leader explains the rationale for why we're doing things, but also solicits ideas about the how. They may say, this is what we need to do, but you tell me how we're going to do this. Let me hear from you how we can, what obstacles do you see that I might not see? I mean, let's take a bank. Regional director, West Coast for a bank has a new policy or new customer service initiative. But the branch managers are the ones who are going to say, this can work. However, we might need to modify this for San Diego, or San Francisco's a bit different. Our audience in San Francisco, we need to change it a little bit. We can't treat every branch exactly the same way. Our customer bases are different. Our branches in Las Vegas gets lots of tourists. Therefore, we have to implement this customer service initiative slightly different than in Riverside, California, where all of our customers are pretty much, live within 10 or 15 miles of the branch.
Fascinating. Yeah. Well, thank you for accommodating that off the wall question. I really appreciate it. All right, I'm going back to your outline, uh, and I was looking ahead, not to change the topic at all, uh, but this is all about influencing rather than dictatorial.
It is. It is, but it's also more about two-way. I mean, influencing can be manipulative at times, depending on how the person does it. But you can lead through influence. So usually, when we talk about leading with influence, it's often about how to lead your peers, your colleagues over whom you have no authority. They don't report to you. So leading with influence, helps break down the silos between, say, the research and development team and the manufacturing teams. Research and development teams are really good at coming up with new ideas and saying, this is innovative, this is what we should do. And then the manufacturing team say, yeah, we can't do that, or we can't do it at this price. I mean, what you want us to do is impossible. And there's all this conflict. So leading with influence helps breaks down those silo barriers between different segments of the organization. Uh, but I would take it into it's more trust building. And when you talk with people, you get in dialogues with people, you break down those barriers, and you get ideas, you get innovation. You hear, people come with great, great ideas, and then you can decide whether to implement them or not if you're a leader.
Fascinating. So authoritarianism, big word. What's that mean to you?
Well, authoritarianism, to me, and I think to most people who would look at the word, is a leadership style where power and decision making is concentrated either in a single person or a very small group of people. And they may or may not take other people's inputs. They may use outside resources for it, but at the end of the day, it's really just power and decision making is only in a few people, or sometimes even one. It's strict control. It's limited input from others. And there's often a focus on obedience and hierarchy. Like you do it. If you don't like it, there's the door. If you don't like these new rules we have, there's the door. Go. Dissent is discouraged, and sometimes offenders are either directly and sometimes even publicly punished for speaking up or speaking out. So that's authoritarianism, and it's not a great leadership style. There are times you need to be an authoritarian leader. There's no doubt, but hopefully it's 5 or 6% of the time, and again, depending what industry you're in. But for most people, you don't want to have an authoritarian leader, 90% of the time that you're working for that person.
Yeah. Mhm. So, one of your key elements here of true leadership, power, is trust, influence, and authority. So we've just been addressing those, but um, those go really deep. Those are huge concepts.
It is. And unfortunately, research shows that trust in the workplace is like at historic lows globally, not just in the United States, but globally. And it's a two-way street. Employees do not trust management, and managers do not entrust employees. And that's sad. And part of it is because for too many years, leaders have been holding things close to their chest. They don't share, they're not open. Their leaders have a tendency, or particularly managers have a tendency to believe they have to have all the answers. And they think that showing vulnerability is a weakness. It's not true. If you're a leader and you go to your team and said, look, I'm not 100% sure what direction we should go, but I know that together, you and me and others in this organization, we can figure this out. We can figure out what the next best strategy should be, or we can figure out how to implement this to the best of our abilities. But let's talk about that. But previously, leaders have to say, well, I have all the answers. So come to me with your questions, and I'll tell you what to do. And that doesn't work in today's world anymore.
Okay, so the concept of trust. How does a boss, a CEO, a boss, work that in this post-pandemic atmosphere?
I would say two things are critical now to build trust. One is listening,
Hmm.
having communications, dialogues that are two-way, not one way, particularly in terms of when you're sharing feedback with another person or sharing change with either an individual or a group of individuals. I think also flexibility is also critical in today's world. People have come to the conclusion during the pandemic that life is not all about work. The Puritanism concept of America, work hard and succeed is, particularly younger generation is saying that doesn't work for me anymore. So here's an example. Here's an example I can give you. When I first worked, my first job out of university, I grew up in Las Vegas. I went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I was hired out of college by Texas Instruments and moved to Dallas. So here's this young, 20-year-old Las Vegas raised kid moving to fairly conservative Dallas, Texas. And I don't know, I've been on the job maybe 6 or 7 months, and I went to my boss and said, hey, boss, I'm going to I need to take off. I'm going to leave at 10 o'clock on Thursday. I have a dentist appointment at 10:30. I should be back by noon. Is that okay with you? And he looked at me, shook his head and said, Stephen, your dentist doesn't work on Saturdays? It was like taking an hour off or an hour and a half off to go to the dentist. It was like, you don't do that. This was in the 1980s. You don't do that. Today, you got to let people do that. You got to let people, have personal time, whether it's pick up their kids, take their kids to a after school sporting event, they'll get their job done. This is where trust comes in. You're hiring people to do work. You should not be hiring people anymore to work certain hours in a certain location. You've got to be flexible. You got to say, I'm hiring people to get a job done. Yes, maybe most of the time they do it in this location, but we have to be flexible to let them do it in other locations. We have to be flexible to let them do it outside our standard hours, as long as it doesn't impact others and as long as they get their work done. And that's the trust. You trust them to get that work done.
That's great. That is just so how do you communicate? How would you as a boss today talk about what you just said? I mean, this kind of a Q&A that we're doing now is designed to get these issues out there in a conversational way rather than a list, a bullet point list. Would you utilize this kind of a framework, this kind of a atmosphere to get that across, to show that you're human?
If I was hired today and brought into an organization, you pull the team together and introduce yourself a little bit and talk a little bit about your background. So I think one of my key messages would be the following. I trust you. I don't know you, but I trust you. You know why I trust you? Because your previous manager or our senior managers, including my boss, whoever that might be in that organization, has hired you. Here's how you lose my trust. You lie, you hide something, you claim credit for something that somebody else did. You sweep problems under the carpet. You don't come to me soon enough with an issue that you know you can't handle, and that's fine. If you can't handle something, something comes up, you come to me. I am your manager. I'm your leader. I will help you. We will work together in finding how to overcome that obstacle. That's how you can lose my trust. Too many people walk in and say just the opposite. Um, you have to earn my trust. And here's how you earn my trust. No, yeah, I think it's better to say, I trust you. Start with trust. And then make sure your actions live up to that behavior.
Well, that's beautifully said. So let's talk about a topic that we've had on previous programs, and that is about on the theme that you just began, what doesn't work. Uh, and so, how do you feel about the rules in some companies, particularly entertainment companies now, back to the office starting in January?
Well, you might guess I'm not a big proponent of it because I just said about flexibility. I mean, one, again, I don't think an organization should have a rule for everybody. Again, if a CEO trusted his business leaders, his department heads, his strategic business unit leaders. Let them make a decision what works best for their department. Yes, for some parts of the organization, I mean, if you're in manufacturing, yes, people have to show up at the factory, no question about it. But do all the finance people need to show up 4 days a week, 5 days a week? Do all the finance people need to show up? No. Maybe you have the finance people have to show up the last 3 working days and the first 2 working days of every month because that's when you're closing your books or every quarter, whatever, whether you're a public company or a private company. Yes, there might be certain requirements like that. But no, you don't have to show, trust your leaders to make the best decision. And that to me, that says when a CEO and they work out with their vice president of human resources and they send out these edicts, everyone has to be back in the office by certain date, so many hours a week or so many days a week, whatever happens to be. That basically says we don't trust anybody below us to make decision. That is authoritarianism. That is where that concentration, that power, that decision making is within just a small group of people. And that I don't think that's going to work very well for many organizations, and that's where people will leave. They'll find something else.
So particularly today, I'm just talking about San Diego here for a minute, um, and the back to the office thing. Most people don't live 15, 20 minutes away from the place of work. They have a 30, 45 minute, even hour commute each way.
Yeah,
That's a killer. That is a demotivator, but that's what we all did before
yeah.
pandemic, right? And then the world changed.
Yeah, it has changed. That's why leadership has to change coming out of the pandemic. And I think people are starting to, the pandemic's almost fading in people's memories. But you know what? We only came out of the pandemic like 2 years ago or two
Right.
and a half years ago, and it doesn't mean it's not going to hit us again. And there's so many other things that are happening. Whether it's the world trade or tariffs or the threat of war around the world. I mean, again, having the need to be flexible is so critical in today's world. But yeah, it's very few people. I mean, why would you commute if you didn't have to? And is that even having people come to the office? Here's a question I don't think enough people think. What is the mindset of those people who commute in San Diego? What is it, the I-5 down there or something? Commuting on the highways down there, stuck in traffic, getting angry, getting stressed because they're starting to run late. What is their mindset when they walk into the office? after that 35, 45 minutes. Is that the mindset you want your people to have
It's
when they
not
have to,
creative.
yeah, to
Right.
make decisions,
Mm.
to be creative, to be innovative, and this is why people make so many bad decisions. Um, and then then they leave in the afternoon, and unfortunately have that same commute going home. And we're now sending our employees home to take it out on their families because they're stressed and upset and angry about their commute, and they take it out on family, whether that means the silent treatment or whatever it is. We're not teaching people to take care of their mental well-being, and so that's one of the reasons we have so much pain in families these days. One of the many reasons.
So this topic can go on, and I welcome you to jump in here with any anecdotes. I'm looking ahead to the next chapter, the next edition, just to give the audience out there a clue, effectively communicating change. And that I think is a huge topic. Um, and one of your topics in that, maybe you just give us a preview of coming attractions, understanding and leveraging the buy-in continuum. What does that mean?
Think of a line, like a straight line, 0 on the left-hand side and 10 on the right-hand side. That's a continuum. And in the middle is obviously going to be a 5. When you announce change, people are going to fall somewhere on that continuum. Like 0 or 1 is going to be they reject the change. They're going to be um, a 10 will be an advocate. A 1 or a 0 will be a dissenter, somebody who talks bad. Not only do they not like it, but they'll talk negative about it to the rest of the staff. Hey, we don't want to do this. Is crazy. Why did the boss come with this stupid idea? And they'll badmouth it, and they're gonna sow dissent within the ranks. And then you move up, and I can actually share with the audience this buy-in continuum pictogram to walk them through it. And the thing is, if somebody say a 4, the problem managers make is they try to make them an 8. And you can't. You got to move people from a 4 to a 5 or 4, maybe to a 6 at the most. But you can't take somebody who is negatively neutral about a change and try and turn them into an advocate overnight. They won't do it. If they do it, it'll be false. They'll fake it, and then things will crater. So that's a great concept to understand the buy-in continuum. One of the guys I coach, I've now been coaching for like 3 years. This came up, I think, in our second coaching session, and I sent him the PowerPoint slide with the diagram on it. For 2.5 years now, it's been taped above right on his computer. Right, he looks at it every day because when he's trying to talk with his team, he manages over 40 people, but some indirectly. And he just says he keeps looking at it. This is what I got to do. This is how I got to get buy-in. This is how I got people to buy into these changes that we're making.
How often would that person give you feedback about how that is working?
Well, we have a coaching session once a month for 50 minutes or so. And I'd say about every other session, he references that or other aspects of things we've talked about. Uh, so yeah, and not only that, but he tells me who he shared it with inside his organization, and other people are using it. So he's kind of coaching others. He's become like my coaching prodigy within his organization.
So what you're talking about is introducing change.
It's in
And,
yeah
and,
that
and
that
some people don't deal with that
yeah.
easily.
Well, that's one of the myths I like to bust about change. People say people don't like change. If I went to somebody and said, I'm going to give you a $10,000 raise, oh, that's good. Well, that's change. No one dislikes that kind of change. If I tell somebody, you know what, we're going to have a 4-day work week and you're going to get long weekends. Is that okay with you? Oh, no, I don't like that. I want to work 5 days a week. No, people accept that change. So it's the change. People are leery of change partially because of the way it's communicated, which is why I look forward to having a conversation about that topic with you. Um, It's also because they don't know what's in it for them, and they don't digest it. So I'm gonna give your audience a technique for how to communicate change in a better way that will lead to higher buy-in on the buy-in continuum.
I can't wait. Okay. And now, so we're going to be talking about a better approach to introducing change and rather than dictatorially influencing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that technique I'm going to share with the audience. I don't want to give it away now, but yeah, but
Right, right,
too much
right.
change is just dictatorial. This is what we're going to do. This is it. It's an edict, and edicts don't work very well in 2025 in today's modern workplace. 30 years ago, in many cases, we hired people for their hands, even, clerical staff, secretaries. We weren't asking them to make decisions. We were asking them to do things. We were, 25, oh, I guess maybe 30 years ago, we're asking them to, punch information into a spreadsheet, punch information into a Word document. We weren't asking them to make decisions. Today, we're hiring more and more hiring people for their brains. We're hiring people to think. We're hiring people to um, ideate. We're hiring people to be creative. So giving edicts to people like that is like, well, we're hiring you, and now we're gonna tie your brain up, and you're not going to be allowed to use it. That makes sense to you?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Does this thing that you're talking about, is it the same in a multinational company? Like we have audience in London, is a huge audience.
Mhm.
Not so big elsewhere across Europe, but London is huge.
It's the same worldwide from my experience. And as you know, I've lived a lot of my life outside the United States, and I still consult with people around the globe. Here's the difference between a multinational company and, let's say, a local business. A local business has 100 employees or 200 employees. When you have 200 employees, 100 employees, these kind of leadership skills need to be everywhere from the top down. When you start having 500, 1,000 employees, these leadership skills, these people-centric leadership skills are best applied at the managerial, team leadership, first line leader, second line leader areas. You're not going to change the vice presidents of the world, the C-suites of the world necessarily. One, because they're stuck in their ways. Two, they're trying to navigate a huge tanker of an organization, which is hard to steer, and they can't change quickly. But let the people below them, again, it goes back to trust. Let the people below them implement these things at the department level, at the SBU level, or at the geographic level, at the country level, at the Asia Pacific regional level, whatever it happens to be. This is how you'll start seeing greater innovation, greater employee morale, reduced employee turnover, and all the other benefits that comes from being a people-centric leader.
Once again, I don't want to steal your thunder, but just to give a taste of like a smorgasbord of what's coming. Okay, but delegation, delegating. You're delegating, well, you can't delegate effectively to people who aren't trained in what you want done.
No, that's why part of the delegation process is to make sure they have the right training, the right tools, and maybe even the right mentoring to do so. And that's why sometimes when you delegate, it takes you more time. Delegation, let's first of all define delegation is not assigning work. Delegation is taking a task or responsibility that the leader has and delegating it to someone else. So, and why do you do that? You do that for one of two reasons. You either do it to free up more time for yourself as a leader to work on more value added stuff, or you do it to develop people. Either way, same process. sometimes you delegate, let's say you're delegating something that you can do quickly because you've been doing it for months or years. It may take you more time the first couple months to handhold the person to mentor them. But once they can do it themselves, you now free up that time for you to do more value added work.
So I was reading this article yesterday or the day before that was in LinkedIn, I believe, or maybe it was Harvard Business Review. I forget. It was about delegating, uh, and it was a woman who wrote it. It was, I think, she was a CEO or a professor at Harvard, maybe both. But she says it's if you don't have training lessons when you're delegating, in the process of delegating, then you're only delegating, you're only giving away time that you could spend on other things, as you just said. But what about the responsibility that she says it's like babysitting if it's not properly set up? And will backfire.
I think so. My attitude, Ed, is that you never delegate responsibility as a leader. You maintain responsibility. Now, let me rephrase that. You delegate responsibility, but you maintain accountability. You are still accountable as the leader. They are responsible for completing the task, for getting the job done to an expected standard within a defined timeline. So you are delegating responsibility, but accountability is still yours. And so my analogy is often like, if you're a parent, you're teaching your child to drive. The child's responsible, your teenager's responsible for obeying the traffic laws, but you're sitting next to them. You're accountable. I mean, if they run a stop sign, you're accountable for it. It's your insurance policy. So it takes you more time. If you're teaching your child to drive, for instance, and so okay, come on, darling, you drive. Let's go to the supermarket, or let's go to Target. And it's going to take them 15 minutes to drive to Target because they're going to drive slower, hopefully. They're going to be more cautious, hopefully. But you could make that same drive in 9 minutes. Well, that's 6 minutes. Yeah, you took longer, but you're teaching that person how to drive the car. That's part of the delegation. So that at some point, in this case, it might be 6 months, a year, whenever they get their license, they can go to Target for you. Darling, would you go to Target and buy this stuff for me? And that has not saved you just a drive time. It saved you your 30 minutes of shopping at Target. So now you saved yourself an hour a year from now. But you had to put the time in up front to delegate, to train, to mentor them on how to drive the automobile. So now they can go do your Target run for you.
And that is a perfect way to close this edition of Leading for Sustained Success,
And that's
because
sustained.
what you've just heard from Stephen is the idea of developing your talent to help the ROI of the corporation. And you're not just ordering people to do things, you're developing the talent as part of the company as a learning organization, upskill, reskill. And that's a perfect way to describe that. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Stephen Howard.
Thank you very much. Nice talking with you.
And your website?
uh, humanyleadership.com. So you can see it on the screen there. Humany is the word I invented, Humony. Leadership, all one word. And humany is the word I created, combining human, humanity, and harmony. And we can talk about that in another session.
Well, first of all, I got to say, you wrote a book, and it's been winning all these awards and recognition for instituting a mental approach that's new and working. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, this is Ed signing off from San Diego, and that's Stephen in Phoenix. Thank you again.
All the best.
See you next edition.
I'll be here.